Now, look, this is special because those of you who love your cricket, indeed I'd say love your sport, would not have been able to avoid the appalling criticism only months ago of the Australian cricket coach Justin Langer. Now, it always astonishes me, people who live off a sport, be it cricket or football or tennis or whatever, too often seem bent on tearing the game apart. Endless column inches were written about Justin Langer by many who would never, ever approximate the knowledge and success of this man. For example, Justin Langer has made more Test hundreds than national treasures like Doug Walters, Ian Chappell, Mark Waugh, Bill Lawry. He scored an eye-popping 1,481 runs in 1 year, 2004. Together with his gifted and uncompromising friend Matthew Hayden, he rewrote the textbooks. As one writer said, making people like the West Indians, Gordon Greenidge and Dennis Haynes, look like strokeless stone wallers. Now, incidentally, cop this. Langer and Hayden were involved in a partnership in 122 Test innings for Australia, not all of them opening. They put on 6,081 runs together, averaging 51.53, and they had 14 century stands. Now, that average has only been bettered by the great Bill Lawry and Bob Simpson at 59.93. This is the ideal man to be coaching young people, where success and failure often come in unequal doses. He played only 8 tests in 6 years. I'll let him tell the story about how he became one of Australia's greatest opening batsmen. How easy is it to forget, though, that Justin Langer rescued the unrescuable Hobart Test of 1999-2000 with Adam Gilchrist. Then he slaughtered a blistering 122 in Auckland, prompting Stephen Waugh, the captain, to call him the world's best batsman. And when he was at the wicket with Matthew Hayden, they gave the impression of two boys just living out a dream. There's not much of him. He's a tiny fellow, but remarkably strong-willed, with a commendable dedication to values. He took blows to the helmet and to his body. I once had dinner with Justin and Kerry Packer and others, and Kerry urged Justin to understand that he might not even have had a career if Kerry hadn't introduced the helmet. But here he is. He holds the record for the most runs scored at first-class level by any Australian, 28,382, a first-class average of 50.23, a test average of 45.27, 23 hundreds in test cricket, 30 50s, top score 250. But in all first-class cricket, 28,382 runs at an average of 50.23, 86 hundreds and 110 50s. Now listen, let me tell you something. Connors, those figures. If you're a cricketer at any level and you can't learn something from this bloke, I'm not sure you deserve to be in his company. In our new digital world, alanjones.com.au, we'll be focusing on people that you want to hear from, like this man, Justin Lee Langer. Nicknamed JL or Alfie, I call him JL 300. He's happily married to his high school sweetheart, Sue. He's got 4 daughters, also a martial artist. He's written 5 books. This is the very man Australian sport needs at the helm. Now, of course, we've just won the World T20 Championship. We're 2 up in the Ashes, but critics being critics, they still lurk among the shadows. JL 300 joins me. Hey, great to have you on board. JL 300, I call you because you never got 300. What happened?
Well, I didn't. You, as you always did, you kept encouraging me to get better and better, and we kept saying 300. One day you'll get 300, and eventually I did. And I think I gave you the bat. You did. I was so thankful for all those years' encouragement. It's,
Thank you, mate.
It's amazing what you can do if you put your mind to it.
Thank you, mate. Well, look, I remember this story about how you became an opener. I think I rang JL. He was in England, and I'd seen him play, and I said, look, I've seen you bat, and you're playing contrary to personality. And then you started to play square of the wicket. Stephen Waugh shoved you in as an opener, and the rest we know. It seems a long while ago, but I bet it's fresh in your mind.
Oh, it was an amazing experience because I thought at 31 years old, I'd been dropped for the first test match in England for the Ashes, and we had 4 test matches, and out of nowhere, I was batting worse than my telephone. I was batting that badly on that tour, and all of a sudden, Steve Waugh, who always had great faith in me, like you always have, said Michael Slater was dropped for that last test, and he's asked me to open the batting with my great mate Matty Hayden at the Oval. And I thought, wow. And I thought it'd be the last time. He was just being a good bloke and giving me one test match. And we were able to get, we had a 200 opening partnership. We were hugging and playing, like you said, like little school kids, living the dream. And we were able to do it for 4 or 5 years after that. So it was amazing how life works out.
It does. Just tell us a bit about that chemistry between you and Matthew Hayden.
Well, one, we're great friends. We've spent... we saw each other yesterday at the Adelaide Oval with Ricky Ponting and Adam Gilchrist and Morney. The five of us had a photograph of standing in the slips like we used to at Adelaide Oval. 5 old blokes having a great time. But look, we just similar values. We worked hard. We had similar journeys. Actually, we love Australia. And it took us a while to find our feet in Test cricket. I think that's why we had respect for each other and for the game. Yeah.
And how did you feel there in the T20, where he was the batting coach for Pakistan and you're coaching Australia? What was the dialogue like?
And then, of course, it was the semi-final. And it was a semi-final. There's about 35,000 Pakistanis there in Dubai. I think there might have been 10 Aussies. And there's my mate Haydos with a Pakistani shirt on. It was, didn't quite look the part, but he loves, he's passionate about cricket. He does a lot of commentary now. He still loves the game.
Yeah, beautiful man, wonderful man. We're going to be talking to him too, but you write books, he writes Cook's books, but can't he cook?
Oh, what? Can he cook? We used to have this tradition every time we played the Perth Test match. He'd come over, he'd send Sue some ingredients or a list of ingredients. She'd bring the ingredients and he'd cook for my family the night before the Test match. The night before he got 380, I'll never forget it. He made the family pumpkin soup and pad thai noodles with something else, and he peeled off 380 the next day.
But I mean, he was in the kitchen, he was obsessed, wasn't he? You couldn't talk to him. He was just there mixing dishes and you thought, my God, he's involving the whole neighbourhood. But no, just 4 or 5 people. What happened to it, I don't know. Look, your great quality was that you stuck at it. I mean, the most first-class runs of any Australian, average of 50. Do you find, JL, that too many athletes, not just cricketers, want the prize, but they're not too interested in the fight?
Particularly in this day and age, I think kids are growing up in this world where they want it instantly, but it doesn't work like that. And we're one thing you always hear of great athletes, I'm not saying I was great, but you talk about the greats I played with, talk about the process. If you get the process, get the recipe right, the outcome looks after itself. But in the world we live in, and my gosh, we all because we're human, we all want the outcome, but you can't get to 100 unless you get off the mark. And you got to do that over and over and over again. And that's where the process is so important.
You've said, though, you see, what you've done and what this man has done has changed the thinking of people who want to play for Australia. Now, that's never evaluated by media writers and whatever, but the thought processes of young people say, gee, this is what Justin Langer stands for, because when you became the coach, you said in cricketers you wanted character ahead of cover drives. How important is that?
Well, of course. I mean, you think about the champions that you know and the great players in my game, some I played with, some I've known over the years, they're also really great people. And the thing that interests me at the moment, AJ, is that people often comment on people that they don't know about rather than the actual game and what's going on. And that's, that can be disappointing, but what I know is that people with integrity, people with a work ethic, people who are honest with themselves and others, they tend to be the ones who stand up under pressure. And in Test cricket or in international cricket, you're under pressure most of the time. So they're the sort of people you want. That's hence the I guess the saying that I've said for years, character over cover drives. There's plenty of talent out there, but you want the guys who are going to stick to it and be resilient but
I've got to say, you've brought values and discipline, and those young people love that. There's a tendency to think, oh, well, they won't respond. That's what they want, and that's what they've been yearning for, and you've given it. Are you sometimes too intense?
I'm a serious person, but my God, I've been serious since I was 15 years old. And I laugh about it. I kept saying, oh, he's too intense. I go, mate, I've been serious since I've been way too serious. So, yeah, I am. I am a bit intense. But the other thing I'll say, don't mistake intensity for honesty either. when you look a person in the eyes and tell them the truth, or you're also demanding honesty from yourself, yeah, that might come across as intensity, but intensity and honesty, and sometimes people don't like honesty, but yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, of course I am, but I'm serious because I love what I do. I love Australian cricket, and I love seeing people, as you do, seeing young guys or young people achieving everything they possibly can from the God-given talent they were born with.
Absolutely. You're 2-0 up in the Ashes. I want to raise this one point. You've had two outstanding captains under your charge. Tim Payne, whom you and I have known forever, a first-class human being who made a mistake, but now this gifted and decent Pat Cummins. But then you lose Cummins and Hazelwood, and in comes Richardson and Neser. How good is Richardson? I thought that first over that he bowled in the Adelaide Test was astonishing.
Oh, you'd love him. Jai Richardson. Oh, you would love him. And then we've got Michael Neser. Yeah. Jai Richardson is an extraordinary athlete. He's a very talented. What you don't know about Jai Richardson, he's got a stake in one of these esports, whatever esports is. I'm an old fella, but he's got and he plays like these games. And people go, "Oh yeah, what's that?" I said, "No, I love that about him because he plays so many hours. He learns how to play games and problem solve, and he does that on the cricket field. You should wait till you see him start batting. Oh my God,
yes,
mate, you wait." And then you got Michael Neser. The response to Michael Neser when he took that wicket with his second ball,
brilliant.
And then Stark, I love him.
And then Stark, and then Nathan Lyon, who seems to be able to bowl all day. How do you rank this strike power against teams you've played in and against?
Oh, look, very good. I mean, Pat Cummins, we call him Winks. Well, I think we've laughed at it before. We call him Winks. He's unbelievable.
Yes.
And he's the unluckiest bloke in the world to miss the last test. The wrong place at the wrong time.
And one day he'll make a test 100. I keep saying to him, I'll be there. I want you to make a test 100 because he can bat.
He can bat. They can all bat. You know, then you Mitchell Stark, he's another one. He gets so much criticism, but he is phenomenal. Look at his resilience. Yeah. He is phenomenal. And I think his consistency this series has been literally world class. I actually thought he was the man of the match this test match because he kept England under so much pressure with two young fast bowlers. And you got Josh Hazelwood coming back, who's an outstanding bowler. We've got a lot of talent in Australian cricket, and that's something we've always been proud of.
Well, look, I'm glad you've given Marcus Harris another go. I always found in teams, if you're too ready to penalise failure, it's got a negative impact on the rest of the team, who then, fearing their own failure and then being dropped, become inhibited in the way they play. I remember losing both my 5/8s for a rugby test. So I had to go to the number 3, and he'd never played for Australia. And at our first training run, he was very nervous, dropped a few balls. I stopped play. I said, listen, I don't care how many balls you drop at the weekend or how many tackles you miss, you'll be playing in the test next Saturday as well. So get out there and get into it. He scored a then Australian record of test points. So, I think Marcus Harris will prove and justify the faith in him. But what about Warner? Is there a better man in a crisis, but then much maligned?
Oh, yeah, well, first on Marcus Harris, he's a kid who dominates domestic cricket. And it takes a bit of time to find your feet. So we're hopeful he'll find his feet. He's a talented player, and he's good in the team too. He's a bit of a joke prankster. And you like a couple of them around. Then you've got David Warner. I've never, and I said this all through the World Cup. David Warner's 36 years old, and I've never ever seen him as fit and hungry as he is right now.
Amazing.
And you don't just become fit. You don't just flick a switch. To get fit as he is at the moment, you've got to work very, very hard. He is so fit, and that tells me a bit about the kid.
Oh, yeah, no.
He's a street fighter, and he works. And you know the thing about him? Since he was suspended 4 years ago, whatever it was, the way he's come back, he's been out. He plays with a smile on his face. Yeah. He's brilliant in the team. He's fit and strong. And my gosh, can he bat?
Yeah, I know him well. He's a very good person too. Now look, Marnus Labuschagne. Now here's a bloke, classic metaphor, makes the Australian side by accident. Now he's a machine. A lot of Langer in Labuschagne, by the way, obsessed with detail.
Well, he made the team by accident when we selected him. We were getting Kahoo. How can you pick this kid?
Average of
look
22.
At him. And you know why we picked him?
Yeah. Go on.
No one besides Steve Smith hits more balls and practices more. No one probably in Australian sport is fitter. Now that's a big call, but he is supremely fit. He loves the game. So there's the ingredients for a champion.
Absolutely.
Look what's happened. I watch him every game and I just shake my head. His progression has been extraordinary, and there's no one who deserves it more.
And what about Alex Carey? There's a young man destined to play with the best in the world of AFL. And the great coach Kevin Sheedy reluctantly cut him from the Greater Western Sydney Giants. And I've never heard so many players in AFL speak so highly of Alex Carey. And here he is now, could captain Australia one day.
Well, he captained Australia in one day.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Ago. Yeah, in West Indies. He's a terrific bloke. I thought the way he wicket kept, when you lose Tim Payne, which is sad for all of us, who sets this bar higher than anyone in wicket keeping.
Yes.
The way Alex Carey just wicket kept in that last Test match when
to the spinners.
Nathan Lyon is spinning and bouncing.
Yeah.
His wicket keeping was brilliant.
And down the leg side where the ball's not sighted.
Brilliant, and he's such a nice guy. I mean, you go now through the Australian cricket team, you talk about the ones we've got, Nisa and Richardson, and then you've Alex Carey. I mean, these are just brilliant young men.
And just before you go, JL, who's on the horizon? I mean, a lot of talk about Pukovsky, very gifted. I mean, you've got Cameron Green in the side. We mentioned Josh Philippe. Were you worried just in Adelaide about the inability to knock over the tail?
No, not really. I think the wicket traditionally in Adelaide gets flat. And Josh Butler, he just hung around. He plays. He's a world-class player. But there's lots of, Matt Renshaw's a very good player who played Test cricket not that long ago. I think he's an excellent young player. There's, Scotty Boland from Victoria, who's an older player, been around a while, but just a terrific bowler, great bloke. Mate, we're full of great blokes who love playing for Australia. It's not a bad combination.
No, wonderful. Hey, listen, Alex Ferguson stayed at Manchester United forever. Wayne Bennett is still going at 71. That gives you 20 more years in the job. You ready for it?
Well, this is my second year without my family for Christmas, but if COVID goes away, you never know, mate. I love my job. I love my job.
I know.
I'll let my actions do the talking.
Good on you. You've done a brilliant, brilliant job, JL, and you've done it fearlessly as well. And I just say to mums and dads out there and the young ones listening, the best recipe for success is just to read about this fella. He's written some books. And as you pursue success, he'll tell you what you've got to avoid. Just a quick one before you go. As you say to the kids out there watching and to mums and dads, a young bloke wants to succeed. Not about what he has to do. What's he got to avoid?
I think if I was a young kid today, and I'd say this, and it's interesting we're on this show, I'd avoid as much social media as possible. And I'll tell you why. Because whilst it's tempting, and AJ, you'll laugh at this, but I don't need to read people's opinions of me who tell me how good I am.
No.
Right? I don't need to tell because my results will do that. I'll tell you what else I don't need in life. Reading about how bad I am from people who don't even know me. And it's the same for young kids. Like in this day and age, there's so many news goes, and why do you want to hear from people who tell you how bad you are all the time?
Well, I
don't know you.
I can answer all of that, and this is my final comment, because we had that dinner with the great Kerry Packer not long before Kerry passed away. It was a memorable dinner. JL was there. I put the players together because Kerry wanted to see them. He said, son, bring them over. So there was Matty Hayden, Steve Waugh, Brett Lee, Shane Watson, and so on. I only mention that because Kerry had always said something, and it applies to you and what you just said then. Kerry Packer always said, son, in life, you know who you are, your friends know who you are, and the rest can get stuffed. I don't think he actually said stuffed. No. So JL, just continue the good work. You left a legacy as a player. You're doing it again as a coach. Not a bad CV. Continuing good luck to you and all the boys. Justin Langer, happy Christmas to you and the team, and good luck on Boxing Day.
Thanks, AJ. It's great talking to you, old mate.
There he is. Wonderful human being. And I think the final word belongs to Matthew Hayden, his mate. Matthew Hayden said, I love JL, what he stands for his fighting spirit, his general character, and the way he presents himself in any situation. He said, isn't this beautiful? Matthew Hayden, he said, the human body doesn't work without one key element, and that is a heart. And he's got a big one for such a small chap. Marvellous stuff. Justin Langer, a class act.